My name is Piet Visser. That's the abbreviated name. My actual name is Pieter Jacobus Visser. And this lovely part of the world that we live in is a retirement resort, and it is wonderful because it is not close to a big city. And we have our own buck. Did you see the buck when you came in?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So I'm going to do it after this.
You must be careful to see the buck. That we've got some buck that roams around in all these green fields and so forth. And we think, I say to my son, I don't often go on holidays because this is my holiday.
Exactly.
My holiday resort.
Why do you need a resort?
Yeah, so we are very happy settled here. We've been here now 5 years, and I don't know how long the Lord is still going to spare us, but as long as He spares us and He keeps us healthy, we love this place.
Excellent. But you forgot to spell your name.
It's P-I-E-T-E-R. That's my first name. My second name is Jacobus, which is spelled J-A-C-O-B-U-S, and my surname is Visser, and it's spelled V-I-S-S-E-R.
Is there any ethnic origin of that last name?
Any what?
Ethnic background.
Yes, it comes from Holland, where in fact fish in Hollands is vis. Also in Afrikaans, fish is vis. And so when my great-great-grandfathers came from Holland to South Africa, their name was Visser, which means he's a fisherman. That's how we got the surname.
And what is your birthday?
My birthday is the 9th of November, 1931.
So it's coming soon.
Yes. I said to you I will be 87 on the 9th of November.
Excellent. You look very good. You're in good shape.
Yes, because I have a Father in heaven that looks after me.
I share that. I am also Christian. And tell me about, by the way, where were you born?
I was born in a very small place called Maclear, spelled M-A-C-L-E-A-R, and that is down in the Eastern Cape.
Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
And tell me about your family background, parents and your siblings when you were growing up there.
Okay. Well, my parents, there's not much I can say about them. You know, you can't choose your parents.
Right.
Okay. But they loved me very much, and I grew up on a beautiful farm in the Eastern Cape. It had mountains, it had buck, it had a river that flowed through the farm, and you could go and fish, and we would catch trout. So
that's my best fish.
there we go. So my mom would say to me, Peter, can you go and catch a couple of trout for us for lunch today? And I would go with a fly fish rod.
Oh, fly fishing.
Fly fishing and catch the trout. And I went to the local school, which was called the Maclear High School. And it was a very small school, but it had a very good reputation. People did well in that school. Very few people didn't make it. And some of the rich people in that area sent their children to Queenstown, which was about 200 k's from there, to boarding school in
I see.
Queenstown. But my father's farm wasn't producing enough money for me to go to boarding school, but I didn't particularly want to go to boarding school. I would rather have stayed on the farm with my parents and enjoy their company.
So now I understand why you settled here in this beautiful remote area, because it's just like your hometown.
Absolutely.
So let me ask this question, and it's very important for me and for this project. When you went through the whole school until the high school,
Yeah.
I assume that you graduated. When did you graduate high school?
When did I graduate
Yeah.
high school? Here,
1940,
1948.
48. Until that, did you learn anything about Korea? Did you know anything about Korea?
Nothing. Look, it's not only Korea I didn't know a lot about. You know, up to a high school, there is limited teaching on other countries. The countries that they teach you about are the countries where your forefathers and so forth came from. But like America, I don't think we learned anything in school about America. It was a country.
Even America.
Even America.
So you haven't.
But England, Holland, Germany, that's where our forefathers came from. They came to a rough country in South Africa and they settled here. And that's what we learned about.
So there was no curriculum about Korea in world history classes in your
None.
educational background.
None whatsoever.
But now you were the pilot during the war representing South Africa, and
Yes.
now you seem to like Korea much, right?
I only started to like Korea when I was invited, after I'd come back from Korea. I was invited, I think it was 5 years after I'd come back from Korea, I was invited to go and see Korea. And it was a different Korea totally. Totally. The Korea that I fought in was a very, very, very poor country. And they grew their own rice. They had paddy fields that they grew the rice in and so forth. But it was a very, very, very poor country. The Korea that I went back to, and I went back 3 times, as I told you, every time I went there, I could see this country grow. And I was very jealous that when I went to go and fight in Korea, South Africa was far, far better than Korea. Far better than Korea. But when I went back to Korea, I found this wonderful metropolis, the country with 5-lane highways, with no shacks for people to live in. They all lived in built houses. And at that stage, they were the 9th best commercial country in the world. I believe you've dropped back a little bit now to 11th. I don't know what you're doing, but at that stage it was the 9th, and in your shipbuilding and everything like that. And I studied this because in that time our country didn't go forward at all. And I thought, why is it? And I came to the conclusion that firstly, the Korean people were not lazy people. They were prepared to work, and they were a proud people. They wanted their country to grow. And so they were all working on that basis. And that made them such a marvelous country in the world. And whenever I tell people about my visits to Korea, I say, I wish that we had a nation in South Africa that was prepared to work, because this is our downfall, that some of our people are not really wanting to work, they just want a job. And so I wish that I could bring that Korean spirit to South Africa.
You just made me so proud of my own nation, but we were able to do this because you gave chance to rebuild our nation from the rubbles and total destruction. But let me ask this question. How do you link the dot between your private life as a citizen of South Africa when you were very young and you didn't know anything about it? Now you are one of the most pro-Korean South African veterans.
Yes.
How do you link this dot? Why did it happen to you from your perspective?
Why did what happen to me?
To you to go to Korea and then you witness these new things coming out of it. Why do you think it's happening to your life?
Well, as I said to you, I think that the Korean people are a proud people, and they are people that are prepared to work hard, and I think that your governments have been steering you in the right way. So that's why I think Korea is where they are today. And it is so sad for me that our country has gone backwards. Mm-hmm. Backwards and backwards and backwards.
So we'll talk about that a little later. But when you graduated in 1948, your high school,
Yeah.
What was your dream? What did you want it to become?
Well, I must tell you that I did not really have much of a dream just when I left high school. But I came up to Johannesburg and I worked for the government in Johannesburg. And one of my bosses must have seen this little plaasjaapie, we call it in Afrikaans. That's a little person that grew up on the farm. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, "What are you doing on the weekends?" Mm. And I said, I go to Bioscope and I visit friends. He said, "How would you like to come out to an airport with me and my family on Saturday?" And I said, "Wow, that would be fantastic." Mm. So on Saturday, I went out with him and his family to a small airport called Grand Central, and here this guy was busy learning to fly. And so they invited me again to come with them, and I loved it, and it was all small planes. And he said to me, why don't you learn to become a pilot?"
Wow.
And I said, "Wow, that would be fantastic, but it's so expensive." And he said, "Yeah, but try and save some of your money and go for flying lessons." So I went for flying lessons. And when I had 7 hours of flying, I went solo. You know, that's fantastic for a pilot to go solo, all on your own.
In 7 hours of training?
In 7 hours of training, I went solo.
I think both you and instructor must have been crazy.
No, they were good instructors.
Wow.
And then at that stage, when I went solo, one day a Harvard aeroplane, you see that plane up there, that's a Harvard trainer.
Huh.
That's what the South African Air Force was trained on in those days.
So that's the exact aircraft that you flew?
No, I hadn't flown that. I flew the Tiger Moth, which is a small aircraft. But two people arrived from the Air Force on our little airport, and they started talking to me, and they said, "What are you doing here?" And I told them that I'm learning to fly, and I'm working and helping the people there so that it's not, I've got a bit of money to pay to learn to fly. And they said to me, listen, if you're so keen to fly, why don't you apply to the Air Force? If they take you on, they will train you to fly. It'll cost you nothing.
Nothing.
And you will fly aeroplanes like that, not little small aircraft. And so I said, how must I apply? And they told me how to apply. And I applied to come onto a pupil pilot's course. And a pupil pilot's course in those days, you worked your normal work, but in the morning early, you went for flying lessons. And in the evening, you went for technical training. And so...
And you didn't pay for it. They paid you.
They paid you. But now I have to get in. I've now put in an application. Then I went to the place where they were interviewing all these people that put in for an application. There were 100 people who applied. I was accepted. How many others do you think were accepted? 3.
Only 3?
4 of us out of 100 was accepted.
Oh.
That's all. So then I did my training. It took a year and a half to get your wings. Then you had 200 hours and you were able to fly aeroplanes in the South African Air Force.
So you were officially in the South African Air Force?
Oh, yeah, officially, yes. And I'd no sooner got my wings, and you will have spoken to General Earp, who would have told you that when you got your wings, they were running short of pilots. They were bringing these old guys in, and they said, are there any volunteers from this course? I was not officially... I was part-time in the Air Force. I wasn't officially in the Air Force. That would like to come into the Air Force and to go to Korea. And I said, that's me.
Why?
Well, first of all, I would be flying Mustangs. That is there, that plane over there.
Yeah.
And I would be seeing the world.
That's the Mustang.
Yeah. The Mustang is that one over there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
when you are 21 years old, what would you like to have more if you like flying than to go and fly those Mustangs and go into the war? And my mother was very upset when I told her I was going.
What did she say?
She said, oh, please don't go. You can get killed there. When you are 21 years old and you have the opportunity to go and fly Mustangs and so forth, you think, oh, well, not all of the guys that go there get killed. Some get killed, but maybe I'm lucky and I don't get killed. And so off I went, and in December 2000
December 1950.
1952.
52.
Yeah.
So you were still here and flying, but you knew that there was a Korean War broke out, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yes.
And you were ready to go there?
Yes. And so that's, first of all, I went to Langebaanweg down in the Cape, and there I was able to do weapons training. That is, to fly and to learn how to shoot air-to-air with machine guns, how to shoot rockets, how to drop bombs, and guess what? First of all, I flew down there and I flew Spitfires. Do you know what a fantastic aeroplane the Spitfire was. We had them at Langebaanweg, and that's what we did our weapons training on. And then, just before I went to Korea, they said, now, you may just get upgraded in Korea from the Mustangs, so we must teach you on jets. So then they taught us. We had Vampires there, which is a twin body jet aeroplane, and they trained us on that. And then once we've done all of that, they sent us off to Korea.
So you are the kind of second wave of South African Air Force pilots after the General Earp and General Mueller, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah,
Did you know anything about happening to those pilots prior to you?
Yes, of course.
What did you hear about them?
Oh, well, I heard everything about them because I was in the Air Force then, and they were coming back, and they were all still in the Air Force when they came back. So I met up with them. I could talk to them about Korea and everything. So I knew everything about Korea at that stage.
By that stage. And so do you remember when you left for Korea, from where and how?
Yeah, I left from an airport that doesn't exist anymore, called Palmitfontein, and we were flown by regular airways from here.
Oh, commercial private.
Commercial private, yeah. From here to Rome, to Bangkok, to Japan, and in Japan we were picked up by the planes that they carried the supplies to those people fighting in Korea with, and we went from there. We went to K-46, which is one of the bases that we were on then.
K-46, I don't know where it was. Anyway, when did you land in Korea? Do you remember by approximately month or the year?
No, I remember very well. It was the beginning of December, 1952.
52?
Yeah.
December? And just be honest, I think you mentioned a little bit about the Korea you saw, but what was your first image of Korea?
I thought, shame, these poor people, they are really in a bad shape, very, very bad shape. And of course, by then I'd picked up the history of the war, what had happened, how North Korea had just come down, attacked South Korea, and it was just by the grace of God that the Americans heard of this, and they came in to help the Koreans. And of course the United Nations then all sent some sort of assistance. Some were pilots, some were Marines, some were soldiers, all, I think there was 18 countries all in the United Nations that all sent assistance to South Korea.
So K-46, I just found that it's a Hwangsong.
Yeah.
Does that ring the bell to you?
Yes.
Hwangsong. It's a very north east. I mean below DMZ, but it's Hwangsong.
Yeah.
Were there any American wings there?
Yes, we were part of an American wing because our government had committed that they would send a squadron to help the Koreans. And when I say a squadron, everybody in that squadron was from the South African Air Force. We bought our own aeroplanes from America that we flew. So it wasn't American planes. We owned the planes that we flew. And we came part of the an American
18th
fighter
and bomber
wings.
wings. Yes.
18 fighter and bomber wings.
So by that time, I think the squadron that used to be in Jinhae moved up to Hwangsong. Is
Yeah.
that right?
No, they were already there when I got there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, when we heard that we were going to get sabres, everybody was very, very happy because the people who flew Mustangs, like General Earp and Mike Miller and so forth, Mustangs was a dangerous aeroplane to fly because Mustangs had glycol fluid for cooling the engines.
Yeah, they mentioned about it.
Yeah, and the thing is that if even a 303 bullet touched a line, a coolant line, you had like 2 minutes to get out of that aeroplane before it burnt out. So it was very, very dangerous indeed. And we lost most of our people on Mustangs. And that was when it was scary. That was when I'm interested to hear that General Earp told you people that he thought he was just lucky that he could fly 60 missions. He was bloody lucky that he could fly 60 missions before he got shot down. General Miller got shot down twice,
right,
as you know. But I flew a very small number of missions. I flew 4 missions on Mustangs. That's all.
That's all.
And then we heard the sabres are coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole war changed for South African pilots because on the Mustangs, you couldn't fly terribly high when you go to a target because you had to conserve your fuel. And with a piston engine aircraft, the lower you fly, the further you can get. So you couldn't fly very high. The other thing is, when you attacked, they could shoot you down with a musket. And so it was very, very much more dangerous. Mm-hmm. With the sabres, when you take off, you fly up to 30,000 feet before you go to where your target is. Mm. Now, okay, they could always still shoot at you with the heavy artillery, the 88.
Anti-aircraft.
Yeah. They could still do that, but they normally used tracers to direct them where they were flying, where they were shooting. And if you were up there at 30,000, you could see those tracers come up. And so all you had to do is to weave a little bit and so forth. And as far as the MiGs are concerned, the Sabre was a much, much superior aircraft to the MiGs. So
at the time, MiG 16 or 14?
MiG 16.
16.
Yeah. And the thing was that the Mustangs had no chance against a MiG.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So MiG 16 was better than Mustang?
Oh, far better. It was a jet. And the Mustang was a piston engine aircraft. So, and it was much slower. So if a squadron of MiGs, of 4 MiGs, jumped 4 Mustangs, the chances were very, very good that they were going to shoot you.
But I forgot to ask these questions to General Muller and Earp. Mm. How was enemy's air force at the time?
The enemy's air force...
MiG, mostly, right?
Yeah.
Were there any Chinese aircraft there?
Chinese people were flying MiGs.
Right.
And so the North Korean pilots were not very good, But they had the Chinese flying their aircraft, and they also had, I can't think, some other pilots that were flying their aircraft.
No Russian.
Could have been Russian too.
Yeah.
And these people were well trained. And so if you were in a Mustang and they were coming for you, you had to be very, very careful what you do. The big advantage that you had is because the Mustang was so much slower, if they came at you, you could always turn quicker than they could turn. And then they would go past because they're going so fast, and that
So
they
that
could
you can...
and then they have to come back again. So that was the situation. The aircraft was, as I say, the Sabre was better than a Mustang as far as I'm concerned. But your problem was definitely on a Mustang. You didn't stand much of a hope against the Sabre.
Were there any dogfights?
Oh yes. Oh, of course. But
Did you?
no. Yes, sometimes. But our role in Korea, the South African Air Force role in Korea, was air to ground.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so you would be lucky if you met some MiGs in the air, because you were shooting up trains,
Bridges.
and villages and all that sort of thing.
Why is it lucky?
Pardon?
Why is it lucky to meet enemy aircraft in the air rather than attacking the earth? I mean,
Because the fighter squadrons, they were air to air. They went up there looking for MiGs.
Mm-hmm.
They were not interested in all the stuff that you could shoot on the ground. And as I said to you, the Sabre, with a good pilot, can match any MiG. The only time that you have a problem with the MiGs is if they see you attacking a ground target, and when you pull off the ground target, you've lost your speed.
Exactly.
And you're climbing up, and they can jump you.
Yeah.
But once you get up at a good height, then if you were a good pilot, the chances were that you would beat the Russian or the Chinese or whoever was flying that airplane.
but I heard, and it was also the confession of North Korean pilot who defected into South Korea
Yeah.
in 1970s, that Kim Il-sung thought that they lost the war because of the air force power of the United Nations. They thought that their air force was really weak.
Oh.
Do you agree?
Well, I wouldn't say that the Air Force was really weak, but they were certainly not up to the standard of the United Nations Air Force. Definitely not.
You mentioned that you had a dogfight.
No, I didn't mention that.
You didn't?
No.
Oh,
I say that the only time that you could have a dogfight in a Sabre when you were flying air to ground
I see.
is when you were on your way home or you were on your way to your target.
Do you want to share some episode of your one of the missions where that you might have lost your life or dangerous? Anything that you remember now?
Well, there's only one that I can remember.
How many sorties did you finish?
I finished about 63 sorties. I went up and we did an air to ground attack, and when I pulled off the attack, I found that I'd lost all the electrics on my aeroplane. So that meant I couldn't use my flaps. I couldn't speak to anybody. and which is very difficult when you're coming to land in.
Yeah, you have to coordinate that.
Right. And then I could have bailed out close to our base, which was K55 at that stage. But we had landed a vampire when I was in training at Langebaan. And it was landed with hardly any damage to it. But what the pilot did there is he didn't put his wheels down. He landed with his wheels up on the belly of the aeroplane.
Oh.
So I decided, rather than bailing out, I would go in and do that kind of landing in Korea. Of course, I couldn't tell the tower that I was going to do this, because I couldn't speak to them. I could have tried to land wheels down, but once you put the wheels down, that's gravity, you can't pick them up again. So if you misjudge the length of the runway or something like that,
there is no second chance.
There's no second chance. So I decided I'm going to do this wheels up landing.
But that's a very dangerous, I know, because my father was pilot too.
Oh.
And he was asked to do it to film the movie. Yeah.
Anyway, so when I came in to land, of course, they shot all the red flares up to show me to go away, to go away.
Yeah.
And every time I came in, because I couldn't put the air brakes down to slow me up, and I couldn't use the flaps to slow me up, I was coming in too fast and I wasn't slowing down enough. The third time, of course, all these times these people are shooting the flares up and saying, go away. The third time I came in very, very slow, and I did the landing, and as soon as I had slowed down enough, I swung off the runway onto the grass, and I stopped on the grass.
That was K-46?
That was a K-55.
55?
Yeah. And of course the guys were there by the time I stopped. The fire brigade and everybody was there, and I jumped out of the aeroplane. But it was still going so fast that I didn't land lightly enough, so I caused quite a bit of damage. But was I in trouble when I got to my CO? I thought he would say, good shot for bringing that aeroplane back. We can at least use the parts of that aeroplane. You know what he said? He said, you bloody fool. We shot all those things off at you. Why didn't you go and dump the aeroplane and come down in the parachute? He said, do you realize that that kind of landing that you did, in most cases, the plane catches fire and explodes? Nobody had ever told me that. I saw the one that landed at Langebaan, and there was no talk about that. And he said, and if that thing burnt and on the runway, he says, do you know how many takeoffs and landings we do on K-55? He said, you would have jammed up the whole thing. So I was not very popular. I was very unpopular.
But my second thought, it's kind of compliment that you were able to do those things.
Yeah.
You know, he was praising your skill.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah. Wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. They gave me blazers. So that's probably the most eventful thing that I can I can tell you.
How accurate you were when you were attacking the ground?
I was very accurate. I have this ability with rockets and with machine guns to be very accurate. Of the best in my time in the Air Force.
Any other episode that you want to share about your flying and your mission?
No, but somebody already told you about General.
Muller?
No, not General Muller. I'll have to think. I'll tell you the story, and then you can blow. It was General Blow, B-L-A-U-W.
B-L-A-U-W.
Yeah,
Blow.
Blow. Jan Blow was his name. He went up with 4 Mustangs, and they shot one of his
Wing.
One of his wingmen.
Yeah.
They shot him down, and he bailed out, and they saw him land, and so they were going to do everything they could do to make sure they had contacted the helicopter. You know, when a pilot is shot down, the helicopter comes in, flies in, and picks him up, if they can, before the Koreans get him.
Rescue mission.
Yeah. And these guys were flying in and keeping the Korean armed forces from getting to this chap.
You mean North Korean?
North Korean, yeah. Definitely North Korean. And eventually they all started getting low on fuel, and the helicopter hadn't come yet. It was on its way, but it hadn't come yet. And General Lowe said to the other 2 pilots in their planes, he said, "Go home, because if you don't go home now, you will run out of fuel on the way home." And they said, "Well, what are you going to do?" He says, "I will defend that guy for as long as I can." You know what he did? When his fuel was running out, he landed next to that pilot. Did anybody tell you that story?
No.
Well, that is true. He got the highest...
Cross?
we can look it up in the...
Medal of Honor? No.
No,
That
no.
was for the citizens, but
Yeah,
maybe...
But we can look it up just
Yes.
now. And he landed next to that guy, and he said to him, to balance the helicopter, you have to take in stones to balance the helicopter. When he got to him, he said, "Hurry up, bring stones." And the helicopter came in, and as the North Koreans came in, the helicopter took off.
That's a beautiful story.
Then, of course, this guy was wounded, so he goes to the hospital to visit this guy, and the guy says to him, "Thank you so much, you saved my life." He says, "Man, that's what we're there for." But I can look up the story in one of the books.
So, did you see many of those rescue missions from your squadron too?
Yes, no, quite a lot of people were rescued.
Distinguished Service Cross, is that right?
That could be it.
Yeah. Did you know why you were there in Korea?
Because as far as I was concerned, I was fighting communism. That's why I was there.
And you knew that also South Africa at the time around late 1940s and 50s, there were a threat of communism all around you, right?
Yeah.
What was the most difficult thing to you during the war there in Korea? If I ask you one thing.
What was the most difficult thing?
To you.
Man, I didn't have a most difficult thing. No, really. I mean, what could be difficult? You're living there, you've got the Americans backing you up on, they're fighting the war, but on Christmas Day, you get prawns and gammon and everything else that you could expect on a Christmas Day, you get there in the lines. Okay, you've got to fight this. As you know, one of our people were killed on a Christmas Day.
Why?
Because the Americans mistook him for a Russian.
Oh.
Because of the you see this here. They mistook that for a Russian star. That's what they said.
Doesn't focus. So they mistook one of your colleague as a Russian. And what happened?
They shot him down.
Shot him down.
Killed him.
So let's talk about the soft side story of your service there. So because you were a pilot and you were with the United States Air Force, so that you were treated pretty nice.
Yeah, oh yes. Oh, so, I didn't find anything hard. Look, it was cold. There's no doubt about it. I've never been so cold in my life before, because you know how cold it gets in winter.
Yeah.
And as she will tell you that I was there the whole winter of 1953, from the beginning to the end. But that's not a big thing when you're 21 years old.
But still, you stayed within the concept, right?
Yeah.
And you had the stove, oil
Yes.
stove.
2 stoves.
Oh, so you lived like a king there.
There we are. You know how cold it was. We had a bathroom, and we used to shower in the bathroom. And so, when you had a shower and you walked from the bathroom to your bungalow, if you combed ice out of your water, of your hair. That's how cold it was.
You're not kidding.
Yeah. Now, can I tell you a story that's very funny? No, wait a minute. But it could be a little bit rude for some people. Can you stop it if you think it's you don't want to have it on this
I will.
program?
Don't worry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Make my day.
Okay, fine. So as I told you, you have this shower room. And then we also had toilets, a whole lot of toilets next to one another. And the way that these toilets worked is that they ran water through the toilets all the way down. And so one of our clever guys thought this is a good thing. And he got a couple of newspapers and he wrapped them up nicely. And then he went to the jet fuel and he dipped this in the jet fuel. Have you heard the story?
JP is the jet oil. I know. Go ahead.
Anyway, so then he went to where the water comes in and he lit it and he let it drive down. And you have never seen so many pilots jump up from the toilet in your life as that day.
So it was more threat than the North Korean soldiers, right?
Yeah.
Were you able to write letter back to your family?
Oh, yes. Yes. Mail was a very important thing for us. But the other thing that I can tell you, which is also a bit funny, is my mother that was so terribly upset about me going there, for her poor little boy, she went to the SAF and she sent a parcel for her poor little boy. And she put in the parcel some biltong. Do you know what biltong is?
Yes.
Okay.
Dried meat.
That's
And Dirk will buy me.
okay.
Where are you, Dirk?
All right. So I get notice from the admin that there's a parcel waiting for me, and boy, I went, picked up my parcel, got back to my bungalow, and I opened it up. And what do you think I found? After having been on the sea for 6 weeks to get to Korea, absolutely moldy biltong. It looked terrible. And I just threw it in underneath my bed. And all my friends that wanted to have biltong said, "Sis, I'm not touching that stuff." And that night I thought, "Shim, but, this is terrible." And I got hold of a brush and I brushed it, and all the mold came off. And here was the beautiful biltong. But all my pals knew that the biltong was mold, so they didn't come and ask for some, so I could eat all the biltong up myself.
And you didn't have any problem?
No, not at all.
Wow.
Oh, no, you ask my wife, biltong goes moldy. You just brush the mold off and it's
Maybe
fine.
your mom did something so that you could have it all.
No, I don't think she did anything.
I don't think she even thought about it.
So, when did you leave Korea?
I can't remember exactly the day and the date that I left Korea.
Month. Month.
I think it was in August. I'm not so sure.
1953.
Yeah.
After the armistice.
Yes. I was there until the armistice was actually signed.
Let me ask you this question. Had you ever imagined that Korea would become like this today when you left Korea?
No.
Why not?
Listen, if you had seen Korea in those days, you would also not have thought that they could do that. I'm telling you, they were worse than our, what do we call them, the nice word? You don't use the K word, yeah? The formal settlements. I mean, they were worse than our informal settlements. Those poor people, they were really in bad shape. I never thought, and you see, having come from a place where you have people that live like that in their homelands and so forth, I saw what it was like, and they never got anywhere here in South Africa. I didn't think that Korea had a snowball, so I really did not think so.
But despite such beautiful outcome came out of your service, people didn't know much about the Korean War, and it's been known as Forgotten War.
Oh, yes.
And in South African history education, they don't talk about Korean War at all.
No.
Why is it?
Listen, you have to live here to know why it is. And I've got to be very careful what I say.
Yeah.
So, I'm not commenting on that.
Okay. What do you think we have to do? Do you think we can teach more about the Korean War here?
In South Africa?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
You doubt it.
I doubt it.
What is the importance of the Korean War to you and to world history?
Well, the importance for me of the Korean War was, firstly, the Koreans died, millions of them died in that war fighting for their country. So they were prepared to go, as poor as they might be, but they weren't off asking other people to come and fight their war, and they didn't fight it. They fought it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first thing. And the second thing is that when the armistice was signed and the Americans started helping them to rebuild their country, they were prepared to work. They didn't squander that money, they worked. And I think the harder they worked, the more they saw that nation building themselves up and being proud and working harder. So, if you have a nation like that, you can rebuild a country.
So when you went back to Korea most recently, did your wife come with you?
Yes.
So let me invite your wife, okay?
Okay?
Wow. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Piet Visser.
Could you spell it?
Jeanette, and then the Visser, obviously, Visser.
And you are the wife of...
Of Piet Visser,
Yeah, huh?
yes.
And when did you marry?
We got married in 1955.
So after he returned from Korea.
After he returned from Korea, yes.
Did you know that he was Korean War veteran at the time?
When I met him, yes, I found out. Yeah.
What did he say about his service in Korea?
Very little. More that he was in the Air Force, that I knew, but the Korean story, we had to drag little bits out here and there.
You know, that's why it's been forgotten. He didn't talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it, yes.
Yeah, because there is so much destruction and sad things.
Yeah, and sad things.
And after that, did you know anything about Korea?
The little bit that Pete told me, and obviously the pictures that he had, but other than that, no. I didn't know anything, you know.
So when did you know that Korea is one of the wealthiest country in the world from the rubbles? When did you come to know that for the first time?
When we went there and I saw the place and how beautiful it is. The cars are all, there's no dilapidated, broken down motor cars on the road. There is no rubble lying in the streets. And all the buildings are beautiful. Everything there looks wonderful. So that's when I found out what a beautiful country it is.
And we were so spoilt.
We were very spoilt, yes.
I'm telling you, it was marvelous the way they spoilt us.
We are privileged to spoil you.
Yeah.
So what do you think about his service? He went to country, he told, and you were here, he is telling us that he didn't know anything about Korea. And he didn't think that Korea would become like this today when he left Korea. And now you went back, you visited Korea with him. What do you think about the whole story?
Well, it's, you know, it's part of our history, and I accept it, and it was great. And the Lord has blessed us and given us a wonderful life. Yeah, so, you know, you accept things, say thank you, Lord, that he came back home.
One piece, right?
In one piece, yes.
And I got his business card, and I never seen anything like that. It's a folding one, and inside there are lots of biblical quotes there.
Right.
And he acknowledged the sin, and he thanked for the blood of Christ, and then the resurrection.
Yeah.
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 So do you believe in God?
Oh, yes, of course. we actually accepted the Lord together the same night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Went
How-
to church.
How long you been married? So 55 you said, right?
Yeah, 55.
45,
so it's
55.
67 years.
Yeah. You are endangered species in these days.
Yes.
So are you proud to be the wife of Korean War veterans?
Yes, very much so.
Very
I'm
much
proud
so.
to be his wife altogether.
Mhm.
And I love being his wife.
By 2020, it's going to be the 70th anniversary of the war that your husband fought.
Yeah.
And you saw Korea in 2013.
Mm.
Do you have any special message to the Korean people?
Just congratulations on what you've done. And keep up the good work.
It's great to have your voice together with your husband. So, Piet, do you have any special message to the Korean people about your service, about Korea, and about the relationship between these two countries?
I'll start with the last one first. I'm very sad to see that with our present government and so forth, the relationship between us and Korea is not what it used to be.
Hmm.
I'm very sad about that. I am very, very grateful to the Korean people who let me go back to Korea to see what they have achieved. They are a country that is
An example to the world.
an example to the world of what can be done if people are prepared to be grateful for what they have been given and to work together to put that to full use in their country. It is a very, very small country, and you are definitely crowded as far as we are concerned. But in spite of that, look what you've achieved. You are definitely my heroes.
We'll accept that because we see you as our hero. And so this is one way to thank you. But most importantly, your service, your sacrifice has to be learned in our history education. And we're going to use it for the special occasion of 70th anniversary. So I really thank you for receiving us in your beautiful home and sharing your wonderful stories. And thank you for your compliment of Korean Nation. But on behalf of Korean Nation, I want to thank you back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming to see us.
Yes, thank you. It was very nice having you.
Thank you.
Privilege.